The stars stretched endlessly, glittering like tiny jewels against the black velvet of space. Captain Lyra's ship, the Horizon Seeker, glided silently toward the edge of the human colonies. Beyond lay alien territory, uncharted, strange, and dangerous. Lyra, a seasoned explorer, had spent years preparing for this mission. She knew it would be difficult, but she never imagined that the first obstacle would be a single alien officer. At the border station, massive towers of metal and glass reflected the light of distant stars. Ships from countless species drifted in the docking lanes, waiting for permission to pass. Lyra maneuvered the Horizon Seeker into an empty bay. The hum of the ship's engines faded as the magnetic clamps secured it to the docking platform. She adjusted her uniform, straightened her posture, and prepared to meet the alien officer who would decide her fate. The airlock hissed open. Lyra stepped out, her boots clanging softly on the metal floor. The station was vast, silent in a way that made her pulse quicken. Alien guards, tall and slender, moved with precision around the docking bay. Their skin shimmered in shades of blue and green, and their eyes reflected intelligence and caution. She had read countless reports about these aliens, the Zorvans. They were strict, meticulous, and suspicious of humans. At the center of the docking bay stood the border officer, Zorvik. He was taller than any human, with a sleek armored exoskeleton that shimmered under the station's lights. His eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto Lyra as she approached. Every step she took seemed measured, almost ceremonial, as if she were stepping into a trial rather than a simple inspection. Captain Lyra. Zorvik's voice was low and precise. You request entry into Zorvan territory. State your purpose. I am a scientific explorer, Lyra replied, keeping her voice calm. I seek permission to enter your space to study the star systems beyond the border. My mission is purely research, no military activity. I bring supplies, data, and nothing that would harm your species. Zorvik tilted his head slightly. We have records of humans entering our space. Many bring trouble, weapons, or sabotage. Your documents may claim peaceful intent, but intent does not equal action. Lyra held his gaze. I understand your caution. I am aware of past incidents, but I assure you my work is for knowledge. I have no orders from the human fleet. I work alone. Zorvik's eyes narrowed. He stepped forward, examining her credentials through a holographic scanner. The device flickered, showing images of Lyra's ship, mission logs, and authorization codes. Everything seemed legitimate, yet Zorvik's expression remained unchanged. Your records are authentic, he said, finally. But humans have a history of ignoring protocols. You request entry to study, but what you study may alter your actions. Security regulations forbid entry without additional clearance. That clearance is denied. Lyra's chest tightened. She had expected resistance, but this felt final. I cannot obtain clearance? She asked, her voice steady despite her frustration. Correct, Zorvik replied. You may not enter. You must leave our space immediately. A heavy silence filled the docking bay. Lyra could see other aliens watching the interaction, their expressions unreadable. She took a deep breath, fighting the rising frustration. She had crossed light years, prepared for any challenge, and now she was turned away by one officer following protocol. Zorvik, she said, choosing her words carefully. I am not here to fight. I only ask that you consider my mission's value. Knowledge benefits all species, even yours. Can you not make an exception? Zorvik's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly, but he shook his head. Rules are rules, Captain. Exceptions cannot be made lightly. You may appeal through proper channels, but it will take months. I suggest you return to human space. Lyra's shoulders slumped slightly, but she did not give up. Months is too long. The phenomena I study are changing daily. If I wait, I may miss everything. Please, reconsider. I only ask for safe passage. Zorvik paused, as if weighing the decision. His species valued logic and order above all else. yet he could sense the determination radiating from her. Humans were unpredictable, but she carried an air of honesty he could not ignore. Still, his duty was clear. "I cannot allow it," he said finally. "Your mission is denied. Depart within standard time or face detainment." Lyra's hands clenched at her sides. She had expected obstacles, but the finality of this refusal struck her deeply. She nodded, forcing a polite smile. "I understand. Thank you for your time, Zorvik." She turned and walked back toward her ship, every step heavy with frustration and disappointment. Her mind raced, thinking of alternative routes, loopholes, or contacts who could override this decision. Nothing seemed viable. As she reached the Horizon Seeker, she paused and glanced back at the station. Zorvik watched her from the docking bay, expression unreadable. Something about her presence lingered with him, a quiet strength, a resilience that made him uneasy. Humans often underestimated the weight of their determination. Once aboard her ship, Lyra initiated the departure sequence. The engines hummed to life and the magnetic clamps released. The station shrank behind her as she maneuvered into open space. She had been denied entry, but she was not defeated. There was always another way, another path to discovery. Zorvik, standing on the observation platform, remained still. He had done his duty, yet an unusual unease settled over him. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but this one, Lyra, was something different. She had a fire in her eyes, a calm courage that made him question the strict boundaries of his rules. As the Horizon Seeker disappeared into the star-strewn void, Zorvik could not shake the feeling that this encounter was only the beginning. Somewhere in the uncharted space ahead, danger awaited, and perhaps, just perhaps, the very human he had refused would play a role in it, whether he wanted to admit it or not. Lyra's ship glided smoothly, but the sensors soon began to pick up irregular signals. Asteroids, comets, and spatial anomalies crowded the edge of the known map. She tightened her grip on the controls. Every explorer knew that the unknown was rarely kind. Hours passed, and the navigation lights of distant planets flickered faintly. Lyra calculated the safest path through the asteroid field that marked the border of alien territory. She had chosen a shortcut, hoping to continue her mission without drawing attention. The first impact came without warning. A small rock, moving faster than predicted, struck the ship's hull. Alarms blared. Lyra wrestled with the controls, avoiding other debris as the ship shook violently. Systems began to fail. Communications flickered, navigation wavered, and the engine hummed unevenly. Her training kicked in. She stabilized the ship as best as possible, sending distress signals automatically. Somewhere out there, someone, or something, might respond. Back at the alien border station, Zorvik's sensors detected the distress signal. It was human in origin. His antennae twitched. The signature matched the one he had just denied entry. A surge of concern coursed through him, mixing with professional duty. He hesitated. The rules were clear. Humans in alien space without clearance were a threat. Yet the signal was weak, erratic, desperate. Against his instincts, he made a decision. He dispatched a small rescue team, instructing them to locate the ship and ensure the human's survival. Zorvik's mind churned. He had denied her, followed protocol, and upheld the law. Yet now, as the rescue team departed, he could not escape. The nagging feeling that this human, Captain Lyra, was extraordinary. Perhaps in saving her life he would discover why she had been so determined, so fearless, so human. The stars whizzed past the Horizon Seeker as Captain Lyra fought to keep her ship steady. The asteroid field had come without warning, a chaotic storm of jagged rocks spinning through the void. Each collision sent shudders through the hull, and red lights flashed furiously across the control panels. Lyra's hands moved quickly, adjusting thrusters, rerouting power, and keeping her eyes glued to the radar. "This is worse than I thought," she muttered to herself. Every new scan revealed more debris, small pieces that could pierce the hull and larger rocks capable of tearing the ship apart. The shortcut she had taken to save time now seemed like a deadly gamble. Her comms flickered, a low static buzzing, in her ears. Emergency signal activated, the ship's AI announced. Distress coordinates transmitted. Lyra's pulse raced. There was no guarantee anyone would respond. She thought of the border station behind her, of Zorvik, the alien officer who had denied her entry. He would never have expected her to venture this far without permission. Yet in this situation, the rules meant nothing. Survival came first. The first major impact came from a spinning rock, small but traveling at incredible speed. It struck the left wing, knocking systems offline. Alarms shrieked. Lyra yanked the controls to compensate, dodging another cluster of asteroids. Sweat dripped from her brow, but she did not falter. Every calculation mattered. Every movement could mean life or death. Far away, on the alien border station, Zorvik monitored the space near the docking bay. His sensors flickered as a weak distress signal appeared on the screens. His eyes narrowed. "That human," he murmured. The signature matched the ship he had denied entry just hours ago. The AI verified the location. The human was in a dangerous zone. Zorvik's mind raced. He had a duty to protect the border, yet this signal was a plea for life. It was unmistakable. Rules had always been absolute in Zorvan culture. No human without clearance could enter their space. Yet this human had crossed the boundary unintentionally or perhaps out of necessity. And now she was in peril. He activated the rescue protocols. "Prepare Team Delta," he commanded. "Locate the vessel. Priority, preservation of life. Do not engage unless necessary." Zorvik's officers moved with precision. Sleek ships detached from the station, weaving through the outer perimeter, with speed and accuracy. He followed the feed, watching the distant speck that was the Horizon Seeker, its hull flickering dangerously as asteroids pummeled it. Back in Lyra's cockpit, the situation worsened. Another impact struck near the engines, throwing sparks into the air. Alarms blared in a continuous loop. Systems were failing. Life support, shields, navigation. Her AI, normally calm and helpful, warned that the engines might fail entirely if the next hit landed near critical components. Lyra took a deep breath. Fear was natural, but panic would kill her faster than the asteroids. "Focus," she whispered. She scanned the field, marking patterns in the rock movements. Each asteroid followed an unpredictable orbit, but there were faint traces of rhythm, gaps, where she could navigate. "Manual override engaged," she told the AI. The ship's autopilot had been trying to calculate the safest path, but it was too slow. Only her human instincts, honed from years of piloting through dangerous space, could survive this storm. A massive rock, the size of a small moon, hurtled toward her from the left. Lyra's hands shook as she calculated speed and trajectory. She tilted the ship at a precise angle, allowing the rock to pass along the hull without a direct hit. Sparks flew, metal groaned, but the ship survived. She exhaled sharply. "That was close," she muttered. Another smaller asteroid spun past, her, barely missing the cockpit. Her chest pounded, but she did not let despair take hold. Humans had faced impossible odds countless times before. Why would this be any different? Meanwhile, Zorvik's rescue team closed in. Sleek Zorvan ships, designed for speed and durability, darted through the outer reaches of the asteroid field. The team leader, an experienced pilot named Varric, maneuvered with precision. "Captain Zorvik," he reported through secure comms. "We have visual on the human ship. It's damaged, but stable for now." Zorvik's eyes narrowed. "Proceed, carefully. We cannot lose her, but do not compromise your ships." He hesitated for a moment. "And watch the human. She is resilient. Do not underestimate her instincts." Varric smirked slightly, though Zorvik could not see it. "Understood. I've piloted through worse." The first attempt to reach Lyra failed. A sudden collision with a floating asteroid knocked their shields down temporarily, forcing them to retreat. The human ship was still in range, but the debris field was relentless. Every move required patience, skill, and courage. Lyra, oblivious to the exact location of the rescue team, noticed faint lights approaching through the debris haze. Her comms crackled. "Who is that?" she shouted over the alarms. "This is Zorvan Rescue Team Delta," came Varric's calm voice. "Stand by. We are bringing you out." Relief washed over her, but she could not afford distraction. The asteroids were unpredictable. She maneuvered alongside the approaching ship, dodging debris with her instincts, aligning her damaged hull with the small opening the rescue team created. The coordination was delicate. Any miscalculation could shatter her ship, but humans were adaptive. Lyra's mind worked quickly, combining calculations with intuition, anticipating each movement in ways even the AI struggled to match. "Good," Varric said over comms. "Almost there. Steady." A sudden, massive asteroid appeared, threatening both ships. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, adjusting thrust and tilt, but the rock was too close. Without thinking, she fired the emergency thrusters, sending the Horizon Seeker in a sudden lurch. The asteroid passed by a fraction of a second later, missing them. Human reflexes. "Impressive," Varric muttered. Finally, the rescue team managed to guide Lyra into the relative safety of their formation. Magnetic grapplers attached to her ship, stabilizing it. The alarms quieted as power was temporarily rerouted from damaged systems. Lyra exhaled deeply, shaking, but alive. Once aboard the Zorvan rescue ship, she was helped into the medical bay. Minor injuries were treated, bruises, cuts, and minor concussions. She thanked the medical team quietly, but her mind was already thinking about the next step, the mission she had come to complete. Zorvik arrived shortly after, his tall frame entering the medical bay silently. Lyra looked up, trying to gauge his reaction. There was no warmth, but there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. "You are fortunate," he said simply. "Many humans do not survive asteroid fields like that." "I had a little help," she replied, nodding toward the rescue team, "and I had to survive the mission. I cannot wait months." Zorvik studied her closely. "You are persistent, perhaps too persistent for your own good. Yet I see why humans are both feared and respected." Lyra's lips curved slightly. "Thank you, I think." He did not smile. "Do not mistake this for kindness. You were saved because your life holds potential value. That is all." Still, as he left the room, Zorvik's mind could not shake the thought. Humans were unpredictable. Yes, but this one, Captain Lyra, was exceptional. She had survived where many would have failed. She had thought clearly under pressure, acted decisively, and maintained her composure. Perhaps there was more to humans than Zorvans understood. Outside, the damaged Horizon Seeker floated, tethered, safely to the alien ship. Stars reflected off the hull, and Lyra gazed through the viewport. The border she had tried to cross seemed impossibly far, but she had survived the first step into alien space. Her mission was delayed, yes, but not defeated. And somewhere, in the depths of that uncharted territory, the adventure and danger was only beginning. Zorvik, watching from the control room, made a quiet decision. He would monitor her progress, even if reluctantly. Humans were dangerous in many ways, but they could also be allies. And perhaps, he thought with the smallest trace of unease, this human might teach him a lesson he did not yet understand. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and both human and alien knew one thing for certain. This was far from over. Captain Lyra sat in the medical bay of the Zorvan rescue ship. Her body was sore from the impacts, but her mind was sharper than ever. She stared through the viewport, watching her damaged ship, the Horizon Seeker, being stabilized by repair drones. For now it was alive, but barely. She looked around the alien ship. Everything was different from human design. The walls glowed softly, covered in thin streams of light instead of hard panels. The air was cool and clean, with a faint metallic taste. The aliens moved with quiet precision, their slender forms gliding across the floor without waste of movement. Then the door slid open. Zorvik stepped in, tall and imposing as always. His gaze went straight to her, piercing and unreadable. "You are awake," he said, his tone neutral. Lyra gave a small nod. I am. And alive. Thanks to you. Zorvik did not answer immediately. His eyes lingered on her as if measuring her words. Finally, he said, Your survival was not guaranteed. Yet you showed skill. Many would have panicked in such a storm. You did not. Lyra leaned back slightly, her lips curving faintly. Panic doesn't help anyone. You either think clearly or you die. Humans learned that long ago. For the first time, Zorvik tilted his head, curious. Humans often act without thought. Yet you claim clarity under pressure. Lyra chuckled softly. Both are true. We act fast, but sometimes fast is exactly what saves us. Zorvik studied her in silence. He had expected arrogance or desperation, but she spoke with calm confidence. Perhaps that was what unsettled him most. He shifted the conversation. Your ship is heavily damaged. It will not travel far without major repairs. You will remain aboard this vessel until the work is complete. Lyra raised an eyebrow. So I'm a guest? Zorvik's voice remained flat. You are under protection. Do not mistake this for hospitality. You are still not permitted in Zorvan space. Lyra shrugged lightly. Protection is good enough for me right now. I'll take it. There was a long pause between them, filled only by the soft hum of the ship. For the first time, Zorvik felt uncertain. The rules had always guided him, but this human was not fitting into the neat categories he had been taught. She was not a threat, not a nuisance, not a fool. She was something else, something dangerous in a different way. Hours later, Lyra walked through the corridors of the ship, escorted by a guard. She observed everything, the way the lights adjusted automatically to her movement, the strange shapes of control panels, the quiet discipline of the crew. Every detail was knowledge, and knowledge was power. When she entered the command center, Zorvik was there. Holographic maps floated above the console, displaying nearby star systems, but one signal glowed brighter than the rest, pulsing in warning. What is that? Lyra asked, stepping closer. Zorvik's jaw tightened. He did not want to share information, but something in her tone made him reconsider. It is an anomaly, a disturbance in space-time. We detected its growth weeks ago, but its movement has accelerated. Lyra frowned. And it's moving toward human colonies. Zorvik's silence was the answer. Lyra crossed her arms, her voice firm. If that thing hits a colony, millions could die. You can't just sit here and observe. Zorvik's gaze sharpened. It is not our duty to protect human settlements. Our priority is Zorvan space. Lyra stepped forward, eyes blazing. Then let me do it, let me help. I know human systems, I know our colonies. You may not care, but if we combine efforts, we can stop it before it spreads to you, too. The command center grew tense. Zorvik's officers exchanged glances. It was bold, reckless even, for a human to speak so directly. Yet her words carried weight. Zorvik's voice lowered. You ask to join forces, after breaking our rules, after defying our border. Lyra held her ground. Yes, because rules. Don't matter if everyone is dead. Sometimes survival means bending the lines. For a long moment, Zorvik simply stared at her. Then slowly, almost reluctantly, he said, You speak with conviction. Perhaps too much, but... His gaze shifted back to the anomaly. Perhaps there is logic in your defiance. Later in the briefing room, Zorvik and Lyra stood side by side reviewing data. The anomaly was strange. Shifting energy patterns, unpredictable movement, and a gravitational pull that bent nearby asteroids into deadly spirals. It's not natural, Lyra muttered, scanning the readouts. This looks controlled, or at least triggered by something. Zorvik nodded slowly. We suspect artificial interference, but no species has admitted involvement. Lyra tapped her fingers against the console. Then it's up to us. If it reaches human space, the colonies won't have time to respond. And once it consumes us, it won't stop. It'll come for you, too. Zorvik studied her expression. There was no fear in her eyes. only determination. It unsettled him. Humans had always been unpredictable, but this one carried a spark he couldn't explain. "You would risk your life," he said quietly, "to protect not only your people, but strangers." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "That's what humans do. We fight for survival, yes, but we also fight for others. Sometimes that's what makes the difference." Zorvik turned away, hiding the strange unease stirring within him. As preparations began, Lyra spent more time with the crew. Some were wary of her, whispering in their alien tongue, but others grew curious. She explained human systems, compared star charts, and even laughed at their strange questions. Her openness disarmed them. Slowly, walls began to lower. Zorvik watched this with quiet intensity. He had expected resistance from his crew, but instead, they were adapting. Respect was forming where suspicion had ruled before. It was unsettling, but also necessary. Late into the night cycle, Lyra returned to the viewport, staring at the stars. She thought of home, of the colonies, of her people who had no idea what danger was approaching. The weight of responsibility pressed on her, but it did not crush her. It only sharpened her resolve. Behind her, Zorvik approached silently. For a long moment he said nothing, only watching the same stars. Then he finally spoke. "You are reckless, stubborn, defiant," Lyra smirked. "I'll take that as a compliment. But," Zorvik continued, "you are also necessary. Your knowledge may help us. Your courage may inspire. Perhaps I was wrong to refuse you." Lyra turned to him, surprised by his words. For the first time, she saw a flicker of humility in his eyes. "Maybe rules aren't always the answer," she said softly. Zorvik did not reply, but his silence carried meaning. The next day, preparations were complete. A joint task force of Zorvan ships, reinforced with modifications suggested by Lyra, was ready to move toward the anomaly. For the first time in history, humans and Zorvans would cooperate on a mission. As the ships departed, Lyra stood on the bridge beside Zorvik. The hum of engines filled the air and the stars stretched ahead. Danger awaited them, but for once she did not feel alone. The anomaly loomed in the distance, a swirling vortex of light and shadow, pulling everything toward its center. It was larger than she expected, more alive than she had imagined. The sight sent a chill down her spine. "This will not be easy," Zorvik said. Lyra tightened her grip on the railing, her voice steady. "Nothing worth doing ever is." The crew worked in silence, focused and tense. The anomaly pulsed, as if sensing their approach. Energy waves rippled outward, threatening to engulf the fleet. The Zorvan fleet moved like a school of silent predators through the darkness of space. Dozens of sleek, sharp-edged ships glided toward the anomaly, their glowing engines cutting bright streaks across the void. Among them was Captain Lyra's damaged vessel, the Horizon Seeker, tethered to one of the Zorvan cruisers like a wounded bird carried by a hawk. In the command center of the lead ship, Zorvik stood tall at the center console. Holographic projections surrounded him, shifting charts, energy readings, and tactical layouts. Beside him stood Lyra, her arms folded, her eyes locked on the swirling anomaly ahead. It filled the viewport like a living storm. Colors bled into one another, blue, red, and gold, twisting like a whirlpool of fire and smoke. Every few seconds, waves of energy rippled outward, bending the stars around it and scattering asteroids in all directions. "It's worse than before," Lyra said softly. "It's growing." Zorvik's face was stern. "The energy readings confirm it. If we do not act now, it will spread to both our territories. There will be no borders, no safety." The crew worked silently, their long fingers moving across controls. Each officer glanced at Lyra now and then. A human among them was unusual, almost unthinkable, but her presence had already changed something. She had earned their attention, and perhaps their respect. Zorvik turned to her. You spoke of human systems and their ability to stabilize anomalies. Explain. Lyra nodded. We've dealt with unstable wormholes before, not on this scale, but similar. The key is to balance the energy. Release it in controlled bursts before it collapses and explodes. Zorvik's eyes narrowed. And how do you propose to balance something this large? Lyra stepped forward, tapping a few buttons on the holographic display. A model of the anomaly appeared, spinning slowly. She pointed at the outer edges. If we place stabilizer drones here and here, and then fire concentrated pulses at the center, we might slow its growth. Your ships have stronger energy beams. My systems can handle the frequency modulations. Together, we stand a chance. The room fell silent. Zorvan officers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, Commander Varric, frowned. You trust this human's guesswork? Our data suggests collapse is inevitable. It's not guesswork, Lyra said firmly. It's experience. Humans learn by doing. We don't always wait for perfect data, we adapt. Her voice carried a quiet strength that silenced the room. Even Varric looked away, unwilling to challenge her again. Zorvik considered her words carefully. He could sense the conviction in her tone. Finally, he nodded. Very well. We try it your way. But know this. If your plan fails, we all perish. Lyra gave a faint smile. Then let's make sure it doesn't fail. The fleet split into two groups. Zorvan cruisers began deploying stabilizer drones, each one glowing with contained energy. They moved like glowing lanterns into the storm, their signals linking into a fragile network. At the same time, Lyra worked with Zorvan engineers to calibrate the energy frequencies. In the engineering bay, she stood over a console surrounded by skeptical aliens. Their eyes studied her every move, as if waiting for her to make a mistake. Humans are reckless, one muttered quietly. Lyra overheard but did not respond with anger. Instead, she smiled faintly. Reckless, maybe, but sometimes reckless saves lives. She adjusted the modulation sequences, hands moving with practiced speed. Years of fieldwork had taught her to trust her instincts as much as her training. She knew she didn't have the most advanced technology, but humans had something else. Creativity, the ability to see patterns others overlooked. Finally, she stepped back. It's ready. The chief engineer, his eyes cautious, checked the numbers. To his surprise, everything matched. She is correct, he admitted reluctantly. Word spread quickly through the ship. The human's plan was in place. Now it was time to test it. The fleet approached the anomaly. Waves of energy struck their shields, rattling the hulls. Sparks flew across control panels as systems strained to withstand the pressure. Through the viewport, the storm twisted violently, as if aware of their presence. Drones in position, Varric reported. Stabilizers locked, another officer confirmed. Zorvik looked at Lyra. Begin your sequence. Lyra's hands hovered over the console. She took a deep breath. Firing frequency modulation. Now. A low hum filled the ship as beams of energy shot from the drones. They converged at the edges of the anomaly, creating a web of light. The storm trembled, resisting. Then slowly it began to shift. It's working, Lyra whispered. The energy flow is slowing. But the celebration came too soon. The anomaly pulsed violently, releasing a shockwave that slammed into the fleet. Ships tumbled, shields cracked, and alarms blared. One of the stabilizer drones exploded, leaving a gap in the web. Hold formation, Zorvik shouted, his voice booming across the bridge. Lyra steadied herself against the railing. We need more power. Push the beams deeper into the core. That will overload the drones, Varric warned. It's the only way, Lyra snapped. Zorvik's eyes met hers. For a brief moment he saw the fire in her gaze, the same fire that had carried her through the asteroid storm, the same fire that had made her defy his refusal. He made his choice. Do it, he commanded. The fleet poured energy into the anomaly. Beams of light cut through the storm, forcing it to contract. The swirling colors grew tighter, the energy patterns stabilizing. For a moment it seemed as if victory was within reach, but then the anomaly reacted. The core split open, releasing a torrent of raw energy. The fleet shook violently, tossed like leaves in a hurricane. "Shields failing," an officer cried. Lyra's mind raced. The plan had worked, but not enough. The anomaly was stronger, almost alive. They needed one final push, something more than drones and beams. Her eyes fell on the Horizon Seeker, still tethered to the cruiser. Its systems were weaker, but it carried experimental human tech, an energy core designed for deep space exploration. Risky, unstable, exactly what was needed. She turned to Zorvik. "Release my ship. I can overload my core and channel it into the anomaly. It might close the rift completely." Zorvik's eyes widened. "That would destroy your vessel." "I know," Lyra said, "but it will save everyone else." The bridge fell silent. No Zorvan had expected this human to offer her own life so willingly. It went against everything they thought they knew. Zorvik's jaw tightened. "Unacceptable. I will not allow it." Lyra stepped closer, her voice low but firm. "You said, rules matter. Well, sometimes breaking them is the only way. Let me do this. It's what humans do. We risk everything when survival demands it." Zorvik stared at her, torn between duty and something deeper. Finally, with a heavy voice, he said, "Very well, but I will not abandon you." Before she could argue, he gave the order. "Detach the human vessel. Prepare energy transfer sequence." Inside the Horizon Seeker, Lyra sat at the controls, her hands steady despite the shaking ship. Sparks flew from damaged panels, but the core hummed with growing power. She aligned the vessel with the anomaly's heart, her eyes focused, her mind clear. "Over comms." Zorvik's voice came through. "You will not do this alone. My ship will synchronize its energy with yours. Together." Lyra smiled faintly. "I never thought I'd hear that from you." "Nor I from you," Zorvik replied. The countdown began. Energy surged through both ships, beams converging at the core of the storm. The anomaly writhed, resisting, but the combined force pressed harder and harder. The swirling light shrieked, collapsing inward. "Almost there," Lyra whispered. The energy built to unbearable levels. Her ship shook violently, alarms blaring. For a moment, she thought it would tear apart. But she held her course, refusing to flinch. And then, it happened. The anomaly collapsed with a deafening silence. The swirling storm shrank into nothing, leaving only the calm void of space. The stars returned, shining quietly where chaos had reigned. The fleet floated in stunned silence. Then cheers erupted across the comms. They had survived. On the Zorvan command ship, Zorvik stood tall, his gaze fixed on the Horizon Seeker, battered but intact. Against all odds, the human had succeeded. "She did it," Barrick whispered, awe in his voice. Zorvik nodded slowly. "No, we did it. Together." In her cockpit, Lyra exhaled, exhaustion washing over her. She smiled faintly, knowing they had won, not just against the anomaly, but against the walls that had divided them. For the first time, Zorvans and humans had fought side by side, and for the first time, Zorvik understood what humans brought to the galaxy, not just resilience, but hope. The great alien ship drifted in silence, its once glorious hull torn apart by the asteroid storm. Fires still burned on some sections, and the smell of scorched metal hung in the air. The battle was over. Lyra stood on the alien bridge beside Zorvik. Both were exhausted, their armor scorched, their faces lined with fatigue. Yet both of them were alive. The alien crew looked at Lyra with strange eyes. Some still carried suspicion, but many showed respect. She had fought beside them, risked her life to save not only Zorvik but also strangers she did not know. For the first time, the Zorvans saw a human not as a reckless invader, but as a warrior who carried honor in her heart. Zorvik's deep voice broke the silence. "You should not be here. You were denied entry. And yet, without you, we would all be dead." Lyra gave a small, tired smile. Sometimes the rules don't matter as much as survival. Sometimes saving lives is more important than following laws. Her words lingered in the air. The Zorvan crew shifted, exchanging glances. Their people had lived by rules for centuries, but here stood a human who showed them that courage sometimes meant breaking those rules. Zorvik studied her face for a long moment. Then he bowed his head slightly, a gesture rarely given to outsiders. Captain Lyra, today you have earned the respect of my people and you have earned mine. The aftermath for 2 days, the crew worked to stabilize the damaged ship. Lyra assisted tirelessly, repairing engines, rerouting power, even carrying supplies for injured Zorvans. Though her body ached, she never complained. Each time someone thanked her, she only answered, "We survived together. That's what matters." During the repairs, Lyra and Zorvik often spoke. At first, their conversations were short and formal, but soon they grew deeper. "You humans are strange," Zorvik said one evening as they watched engineers seal a breach in the hull. "You are weak compared to us, fragile compared to other species, yet you throw yourselves into danger without hesitation." Lyra chuckled softly. "Maybe that's why we survive. We don't know when to quit. When everything looks impossible, we push harder." Zorvik tilted his head, intrigued. "That is dangerous, yet it is also admirable." Lyra looked out at the stars. "Maybe one day humans and Zorvans won't see each other as threats. Maybe we can be allies. Friends, even." Zorvik was silent for a long time, his sharp eyes reflecting the starlight. At last, he spoke quietly. "Perhaps today is the first step, the return to the border station." When the ship finally limped back to the border station, the entire outpost gathered to see it arrive. The massive vessel had been given up as lost, yet here it was, saved because a single human had refused to abandon them. As the docking clamp secured the damaged ship, crowds of Zorvans filled the viewing platforms. Officers, guards, and civilians alike stared at the human who stepped off the ramp beside Zorvik. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some whispered fear, others spoke of respect. Zorvik raised his voice so all could hear. "This human, Captain, Lyra, was denied entry to our space. She could have left us to die, but instead she fought beside us. She saved us." His words echoed through the station. "Let all who hear this know, humans are not what we believed. They are reckless, yes, unpredictable, but they are also brave. They are allies worth considering." The station erupted in gasps and murmurs. Never before had a Zorvan officer spoken in such a way about humans. For generations, suspicion had ruled. But now doubt began to crack, replaced by curiosity and respect. A choice later, in a private chamber, Zorvik stood with Lyra. Between them lay the official documents of entry, signed and sealed. "You asked for entry," Zorvik said, his tone softer now. "It was denied. But now I give you this. Not only permission to explore, but an invitation to work alongside our people. The Zorvan High Command will hear of what you did. You will not be remembered as an intruder, but as a savior." Lyra's eyes widened. She touched the documents with trembling fingers. "Thank you, Zorvik, but I didn't do this for rewards. I only did what I thought was right." Zorvik gave a rare smile. "That is why you deserve it." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Both knew that this was not just about one human or one alien. It was about two civilizations taking a first step toward trust. The farewell. For now, when the time came for Lyra to leave, the station lined with officers to watch her departure. No longer was she seen as a threat or a trespasser. Now she was seen as an honored guest. Zorvik stood at the docking bay as the Horizon Seeker prepared for launch. "We will meet again, Captain Lyra," he said firmly. "And when we do, perhaps our peoples will stand side by side, not as strangers but as allies." Lyra nodded. "I'll look forward to that day. Until then, keep your people safe. Zorvik. And remember, sometimes the rules aren't everything." For the first time, Zorvik allowed himself a quiet laugh. spoken like a true human. The airlock closed, and Lyra's ship lifted away, drifting once more into the sea of stars. She felt both weary and hopeful. The galaxy was vast, filled with dangers and mysteries, but perhaps now she would not face them alone. A new beginning. As the Horizon Seeker moved into the dark, Lyra sat at the controls, reflecting on all that had happened. She had been denied, refused, and nearly killed. But in the end, she had earned something far greater than simple entry papers. She had earned trust. Her ship's scanners picked up new signals from the unexplored systems ahead. Strange readings, unusual energy flows, exactly the kind of mysteries that had brought her here in the first place. With a determined smile, Lyra set a course. The stars called to her, and now she had allies who would listen if danger came. Back. On the station, Zorvik stood in silence, watching her ship disappear into the distance. Deep within, something stirred in him. Respect, admiration, and perhaps the beginning of a friendship that would shape the future of two worlds. The galaxy was changing, and it had started with one human who refused to give up. Epilogue. Weeks later, rumors spread across both human and Zorvan space. Stories of Captain Lyra and Officer Zorvik traveled faster than light. Some dismissed them as exaggerated tales. Others whispered that it was the beginning of a new alliance. But those who had been there, the crew who had seen Lyra fight, bleed, and save them, knew the truth. Humanity had shown its heart, and the galaxy would never be the same again.